Okay, so hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, so we're gonna have our next Water Week session with our presenter, um, Gregory Holliday. Thank you for joining us. So they told us that you made a trip all the way from here, from Washington.
That's right.
All right, how was the flight? All good?
No problem.
No problem. You didn't get the dust storm. That's good.
Luckily, I flew in before the dust storm.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. So you came in just at the right time. So just a little background about Greg. So prior to joining WBCSD, Greg was a U.S. diplomat for 22 years. He served in Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Washington, D.C. in a number of policy areas, including human trafficking, migration, transnational crime, counter-piracy, citizen security, and water. In addition to policy work and intelligence analysis, he developed and managed international programs in some of these same issue areas, working closely with partners in foreign governments, civil society, international organizations, and the private sectors. So in today's much needed race to net zero and the increasing levels of water stress, the 50O coalition aims to develop a new generation of solutions for water efficiency and water heating reductions in homes while improving customer experience. Through 50O Home, Electrolux Group, IKEA, Kohler Co., and Procter & Gamble joined forces with U.S. Green Building Council California to implement a demonstration pilot in Los Angeles, California. This unique effort to integrate solutions from different market leaders demonstrates how existing and new innovations can achieve substantial savings in domestic water and energy consumption. They gather data at every point of use in the home for a full year to understand water and energy consumption in homes in the greater Los Angeles region. And their preliminary data shows significant savings in water, energy, and increased satisfaction with quality of life among participants. So today's presentation is going to dive into the learnings from the pilot and explore how untraditional partnerships can contribute to impactful solutions to water issues in water scarce areas around the world. So once again, and an applause for our guest, Gregory Holliday.
Okay, there's a very kind introduction. Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank UTEP and UACJ for hosting World Water Week and inviting me to come and speak. This is an area that is very near and dear to my heart. That's why after I left the State Department, I joined 50 Liter Home Coalition. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about 50 Liter Home, what it is that we do. I'm going to describe the pilot project that we're doing in Los Angeles and some of the results that we found that have just come out. And then I'm going to want to hear all from you as well to kind of find out about how this fits in with your lives, how it fits in with the local water situation here. And I'll end by talking a little bit about what we're doing here locally. So this is the 50 Liter Home Coalition. These are our members, the ones that really drive it, the 5 companies that you see on top. You're probably familiar with many or most of them. You probably use them on a daily basis. Our partners are companies, organizations, governments that help us more specifically for specific work that we may do, whether it's something regional or some part of our implementation project. So this is what we are as a coalition. This is our vision. Innovation, irresistible innovations for urban water to bring down water and energy in urban homes. And it's really about bringing together the public sector and the private sector to see how we can really come up with some serious solutions, bringing together all the different pieces of the puzzle of how we use water in our homes. Because as we know, water transits through lots of different hands and tubes and pipes before it comes out into the form that we want to use it. And it's about bringing all of those together in the whole string to figure out where are the efficiencies. And when we figure that out, figure out what's scalable and how do we really make global impact. So this is where we started. Why 50 Liter Home? Why that name? It actually comes from when Cape Town, South Africa was nearing day zero. Maybe you remember there was this fear that they might actually run out of water in the city. And so the guidance that the city gave was every person was only allowed to use 50 liters of water per person per day. And of course, you can imagine how difficult that might be. That's about 13 gallons. And I actually have a colleague, a friend who was living in Cape Town at the time, and I asked him about his experiences. You know, what was that like? And he would describe how he would take a shower inside of a big plastic basin so that that water that was used, he could double it up and use it to flush toilets. That's just one example, but of course, you can imagine that while it may have been possible for them to live that way, it was anything but comfortable. And so the companies that came together to start 50-liter home that you saw before asked themselves the question, well, we're the ones that provide the products and the appliances and the fixtures that you use in your home. If it's possible to live on 50 liters a day, what if it was possible to actually enjoy it? What if it was possible for you to actually outfit your home in such a way that you could bring down your water and energy use and not even notice? So this is what we do as a coalition. These are our main objectives. The innovation by bringing together all these different companies and nonprofit organizations, academia, governments. Some of them are competitive with each other to sort of figure out what's the best way of working together. Implementation. Uh, this is sort of the key, and this is what I'm going to talk a little bit more about today, which is what are we doing to test our theories and figure this stuff out and figure out, how we can really find solutions. We go into homes, we measure, we retrofit with different products and appliances, we measure again, and we see what works. The education piece, it's putting together what we've learned, policy papers, and making sure that people get access to them and use them. But the advocacy part is very important to us because it's not just about making a white paper and putting it on the internet or putting it on a shelf. It's really about how to work with governments to figure out what are their challenges and how can they implement what we have learned and how might it work locally for them. Because as you know, water is very local. You don't just get to go to some national government at the top and say, here's some suggestions. This policies and are set all the way down the chain. So this is what our pilot looks like in Los Angeles. We're gathering data. We're gathering data not only on the amount of water used and how they're using it, but also data from the consumers. The people in the pilot, we talk to them with behavioral change professionals to try to understand what is the impact on them and how do they feel and how does that impact their lives. Our challenge is to figure out what do we do with this once we learn all this stuff, right? How do we pull all these things together and come up with some incentive schemes that could be useful to help people make some changes in their home, integrating these solutions and then sharing them broadly, as I mentioned, to scale broadly. By the way, these pictures look like what we might have found if we had Googled iconic California family, but these are actual participants in our pilot. So this is the details of what the pilot looks like. We took 31 homes in the San Fernando Valley. We measured all of them with, we put sensors on the water meter from a company called Flume, which is one of our partners. And then we put sensors on every point of use inside the home. Everything that turns on water has its own sensor. And that helps us also measure how much hot water and how much cold water. That's from a company called Drupal, which is also one of our partners. And then we took a baseline. We understood how much water people were using. And then we took 15 of those homes and we had that be the retrofit group. And then the other, 16 were the control. We never went back to them and we never did anything. We just continued to monitor those sensoring devices and measure their data. So in the control homes, we started off with some, let me get to that in a minute. So what we found over the course of the year gathering this, right, 258 million data points. And that's basically like every few moments, those sensors are sending data back to us about how that water is being used. And so you can imagine, this is a massive data set. And I don't know of any other data set that exists like this, at this level of detail about how people use water in their homes. And then, as I mentioned, we talk to people. We hire a firm to go into their house, understand how they interact, how they feel about things. And we really learned a lot about it. There's a lot going on here in this slide, but this is a map of the home to show you what we did. So you can see P&G there at the top. There's Procter & Gamble consumable products for every room of the house. You can see where we put IKEA appliances in the kitchen and in the bathroom, Electrolux and Kohler in the kitchen, Kohler in the bathroom, Electrolux clothes washer and dryer. We had outdoors, we did a Rainbird smart irrigation meter. All of those products were being used by the people in the home, and then all of those sensors were sending data to our data center to try to figure out what was happening with each one of them. So let me pause here for a moment and turn it all to you. I'd be interested to hear about in your own homes. What do you do to save water? What do you do to save energy? And these could be things that are either behaviors and habits that you have, or devices that you've installed. So does anybody want to offer to tell me a little bit about?
Okay, Mary.
Thank you.
So I think I'm kind of a freak, because one of the things, I live in an old home, 1914. It doesn't have a shower. I still have the original tub. I take a bath, full disclosure, once a week. I also hang my clothes in the sun to dry them every week. I mean, every now and then the weather's not appropriate, but I do that. I really careful to turn off the darn faucet if I don't need the water right then. It makes me so upset. They show people just running faucets in all kinds of programs. We should outlaw that. No one should see that, so they don't even think about doing such a thing. I turn off lights. I turn them off all the time.
That's great. And I'd be interested to know actually why you do those things. Is it because you're concerned about water conservation, or is there something else going on?
No, I do those things definitely because I'm an environmentalist from the 70s, and I've been conscious of water the whole time that I've been an adult, I guess. And same thing goes for energy. So energy crisis in the 70s, Jimmy Carter. Yeah, so we were taught in the 70s to turn on the lights off. That seems to have kind of gone by the wayside. Yeah, so I think that's basically it.
Well, if that makes you a freak, then we should all be so freaky.
Do we have time for one more?
Please, yes, please, anybody.
Yeah, I'm Jerry. Well, I'm from Wisconsin and I lived on Lake Michigan. We didn't worry about water up there. Moving down here, it was somewhat different. The first home that we owned, it had grass and we were watering grass. And I kind of wondered about the wisdom of that. I live in a small home now, a retirement home. They're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it does not have a yard. I have it xeriscaped. And I installed a drip irrigation system. Most people have the pop-up sprinklers, which I consider, they look terribly wasteful, and they are. This drip irrigation system is very efficient. I have nice shrubs, I have some shade, and the water use is very minimal.
And why do you do those things?
Why did I do it?
Mm-hmm.
To save water.
You understand the importance and you care about it. Anybody else?
In the desert.
You're in the desert,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah,
Back there?
one more. Hey, no, we have to use the mic for people on
That's where-
Zoom.
yep.
Oh, well, my reasons are a little more economical, because I live in an apartment and so I don't actually pay for water. But they install like water saving, shower heads, and then if you change it out, they'll charge you. So they give incentives to use their own stuff. And then for energy, I do pay for that myself. So I try and like not use too much heat or too much cooling, and usually they're freeze or burn depending on the season. But not too many like saving things, but I think as far as economics go, that's like a primary factor for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate your comments about living in a desert and wanting to save water. I talk about watering grass. I'm the same. Like it's astounding to me how much Americans love to water their grass. And when I'm doing these talks in overseas, because we're a global initiative, they're always astounded at the amount of grass and the love that Americans have for our grass, especially when you can't eat it unless you're raising cattle. Definitely do your grass. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the results that we found from our pilot. And these are just in after our 1 year. So I'm starting off with the first one about better living. And I think this is very interesting because we have reduced water in these homes by 21%, as you see there in the next bullet point down. But people said that their lives were actually better. We asked them on a scale of, one to 5, with 3 being sort of neutral. All of this didn't really have much of an effect on their lives. They averaged a 4 rating, which means that they reduced their amount of water, and their lives were actually better. I think this is very interesting because as we generally talk about saving water in the home, most people are going to think about the sacrifices that they have to make, the sacrifices that they'll be told to make. Like you who said, you've got the water saving shower heads, right? You might want to try to change that out yourself, but you can't because they'll catch you. It feels like sacrifice, and that's how we're have been thinking about it all along. And that's really sort of the challenge of our group. Can we bring it down and actually bring up people and their experiences? And so that's what we were able to find. The average water usage in the homes of our retrofitted group is 23 gallons per person per day, 87 liters. So that's 21% less than our control group. So that's how much we can measure that we brought it down just based on our interventions. That's 50% lower than the average water usage of a person in Los Angeles. And I should clarify, we're talking about indoor water use here. All these numbers are about indoor water use. So that's very interesting too, right? How come our numbers are so much lower? We brought it down 21%. Where'd that extra 30 come from? Well, that's something that we're looking very closely at with the data to try to make sure that we really understand that clearly. But one thing about our study that I'll let you know is the population of people that are in this study came to us through our partner Flume, the one that sells this product that you put on your water meter. And so these are people who, of their own accord, decided to go off and spend a couple $100 to learn more about how water is used in their home. These Flume devices will also let you know if you have a leak. So maybe there's something about our population that has some sort of an impact on how they feel about and use water in the home. Not sure, something that we're looking into, want to learn more about. Another big highlight, high efficiency toilets. We found 23% water savings. And on hot water, we did pretty well too. We brought down hot water use by 23%. And the laundry was a big area. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And also in kitchen sinks, bringing down hot water. Now, why, of course, does hot water matter? Because that's your energy, right? It's not just about water. It's about your greenhouse gas emissions and electricity, and also your energy bill, which we all seem to be far more aware of than our water bill. So here's a little zoom in on the kitchen, right? We brought down, the kitchen sink went down by 21%, and the dishwasher went down by 4%. And what happened here was people generally, one, they spent less time washing their dishes by hand, and two is they moved over towards to favor the dishwasher. And that's a good thing. That's another area where I think some of us have this concept of a dishwasher is this big machine and there's water shooting everywhere. It's got to be less efficient than just me just washing the dishes myself. Not true. Even a regular dishwasher is going to be more water efficient than the way we typically wash dishes in America. Turn on the faucet, turn on the hot water, wash them, rinse them, turn it off. So most people will definitely save water in their kitchen by favoring the dishwasher. Now, we had a very high efficient dishwasher, and so saved a lot of water. Um, and but we also had these products that helped people wash their dishes faster. For example, the Dawn Power Wash. You spray it on, it foams up, you leave it there, and then you just give it a rinse off. You don't have to spend a lot of time intensively washing it, and so your water is off in the kitchen sink for longer. Procter & Gamble's Cascade pods for the dishwasher. They're formulated to really take on the tough jobs, so you don't pre-rinse your dishes. You scrape it into the garbage, anything that's on the plate, and you just put it in the dishwasher. So by eliminating pre-rinsing, by cutting the time of washing dishes, it's really brought down the water use in the home. And it's also saved time. You can see people spend about 15% less time doing the dishes. And that's probably part of why they said that they liked that this improved their standard of living. And I think it's interesting to note that there was no nudging involved with this study. We never went to anybody and asked them to do anything differently. We didn't ask them to make any changes in their lives. We didn't ask them to flush less often. We didn't ask them to take fewer, shorter showers, anything, right? We just gave them the stuff to see what happens. So in the laundry, this is very interesting about how much hot water we saved. And I have to say, I'm kind of a water nerd. I don't have a water engineering background, but I'm super interested in water and how water works and all the ways that we use it. And I had no idea until I started this job that Electrolux told me that we use way too much hot water to do our laundry. I don't know if I'm the last person to this party, but everybody apparently is taught from the first time they learned how to do laundry, right? White's warm, color's cold. And if you're a guy like me who just has to do laundry and that's the one thing that you have to know, well, then that's it. And that's all I learned. So we often use hot water, way more. Now, hot water, it degrades our clothes faster, right? So that's more waste, makes them fade faster. But it just isn't needed to get them as clean as we want them to be. Now, I look at my own washing machine and I see that it defaults to a hot water setting. I have to go in there and think about it, manually change it if I want. Now I do that. Didn't used to do that. Electrolux has designed their machines to default to cold water settings. And Procter & Gamble has made these Tide Pods, which are specially engineered to work better in cold water. So with those two things together, people decrease their hot water use in their laundry by 55%. They didn't complain about their laundry not being clean. They said that their lives got better. So this is a very interesting thing, I think, as well. And certainly they noticed that in their bills. So by bringing down hot water by 23%, this is what it translates to. 18% energy reduction in the homes and 16% greenhouse gas reductions. So going back to the consumer delight piece of it, the question was, how would you rate the cumulative impact of all provided products, appliances, and fixtures on your quality of life at home? And that's where they rated 4.0 out of 5. As I mentioned, they've saved some time on doing some chores. That certainly is going to make my quality of life better. And we also saw that they were happy with their lawns, with better lawn care with the sprinkler systems. Although we also found that didn't actually save much water in the outdoors. And this is a big area that we'll need to be looking at in our next iteration, because outdoor water use is a massive amount of the amount of water used in our urban homes, those with lawns. So now we're at this point where we have to sort of figure out, where do we go from here? What have we learned? How can we come up with recommendations, ideas, products to help people do a better job of moving into the future, right? How do they implement some of these things that we found? Now we're going to be continuing to innovate. This is the phase 2 data that we are talking about. We're moving into phase 3. Okay, so we're moving into phase 3 where we're going to have even more innovative things. One of the things is a recirculating shower. This will take the water from your shower and clean it and bring it back around. And you get to use it again. Now that's impactful not only for water savings, but think about how much time you spend heating up your shower, right? All that water that's wasted when you turn it on and then you stand back and you wait for it to become, humanly possible to get into it. So recapturing the heat and reusing the water. We hope that will show us some interesting savings. We're also going to be looking at the lawns. And this is, as I mentioned before, about 65% of the water these family used was outdoors. So we're going to look at things like xeriscaping and polyculture, very native plants and things to help people bring that down. And I think that in conjunction with the smart irrigation systems will be helpful. One thing that you mentioned is you put in the xeriscaping and then you knew to do some drip irrigation, which as you mentioned is far less water intensive because you get the water right to the roots and you don't spray it into the air where it quickly evaporates. But what we've learned in talking to one of our members, the city of Phoenix, and talking to their water utility is they have implemented a program that has very effectively gotten people to switch out their old, grassy lawns to xeriscaping. And they've had great success with that, but it hasn't translated into less water use.
Here, you can use this one. Maybe it's tied.
See, thank you. Okay, I think we're still good.
Okay.
It's really easy.
Hasn't translated into lower water use for them because people don't realize. People are still watering the hell out of their xeriscaping. So more information, more education needs to happen there, right? But they're at a good start. So let's pivot a little bit, right? As we think about how to take what we've learned and move it to other places and help other localities implement, we need to learn from them, right? We need to ask, we need to understand what are the local water challenges. So I'd be very interested to hear from you what ideas you have as I've gone through this presentation. What did you see in here that sparked some interest in you? Did you learn anything? Might it change any behaviors? Might it change your interest in looking for certain appliances or products, devices? And then after that, I'd also like to hear about what water challenges you face here in El Paso and talk a little bit more about how what we're doing in El Paso and learn more about what you're seeing in El Paso. So, and want to offer? Press and hold the button.
Okay. So I think the question that you asked was, what is the takeaway that we've learned up to now for trying to implement this into our daily lives? I definitely think that straying away from the common grass that everybody uses, because I think here in El Paso, I've seen it. It's like it's very contrasting to see the desert and then this lush grass, but you can only see the amount of water that's required for that. Or you have these trees that are not native to El Paso, but people are really reluctant to stray away from those kind of trees. So I definitely think implementing into my own landscape or putting into my own home is definitely using native species, because I think it's so important in order to conserve water. And I think that really will kind of help, as well as kind of implementing that into either Lowe's or Home Depot, because a lot of times these native species aren't sold. And it wasn't until I found out here that there are some clubs and organizations that can actually help propagate these. So putting, little cacti or, certain succulents or some of these organisms. So I definitely think that's very important. And I think everyone should at least consider or transition to that kind of state. And I think the second question is any issues, I think, in what regards to water.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I can't think of any major issues since water is very, well, at least in my own daily life, because it's been so abundant. But I think one thing that I catch myself doing is sometimes like when I'm like brushing my teeth, like I forget to turn the sink off, and I think I become.
Uh-oh.
But it's good coming to these kinds of events because it gives a certain guilt, and I'm like, no, I need to turn the water off and become more conscientious. And I think if there's any issue that I have, it's that I'm not conscientious enough of the water itself. So I definitely think that's something that I'm kind of trying to put into practice and just applications that actually you can consider. And I just don't think there's enough push here in El Paso, maybe for the general community on how they can conserve water. And I definitely think it's an issue that we need to.
Thank you. That's really interesting. First of all, I want to reflect on the fact that you said that native species aren't being sold locally here. That's fascinating to me. I didn't know that. And that's really interesting. And I think that goes along with these very old entrenched behaviors that we've seen over time. You know, when we think about a lawn and what is our concept of a lawn and why do we have the lawns that we have? So many times these things are sort of handed down over the generations and we don't stop to ask the questions, right? Like, wait a second, why do I have grass in El Paso? Is there a need? Is there something that I'm doing on this grass? Maybe there is. But if there's not, then ask yourself that question. Is there a better way? And I think it's also very interesting. I want to reflect on what you said about you don't notice the problems. You always have water and you don't notice, right? There are no water problems here. And that is a very real challenge that all of us who are interested in water conservation, who are aware, face, because the water always comes on, right? Unless you live in Los Kilometros out in Ciudad Juarez, where I visited with Nestor yesterday, or some of the colonias far out outside of El Paso that aren't connected to the water system, the water is always on. And you turn it on and you pay your bill. It's not that much, frankly, and it's there. And so when do we ever have the opportunity to realize we're using a very precious, very expensive resource, and what do we need to do about it?
That's sorry. I'd actually like to collaborate on that because there is some challenges that we do face here in El Paso. I know that recently, like I believe 6 months ago, because of our pipe system, I believe Socorro City or down over there, more Horizon, they were actually getting gray water. And when they were turning on the pipes, their water was not the best quality and people were concerned. So I know that those are some of the issues that we do face. But another thing that I wanted to bring up is that a lot of our infrastructure is very old. So our pipe systems are not the best. And for example, you had mentioned about like gray water systems or whole house water recycling systems. A lot of us aren't able to afford that. A lot of people here are people who sometimes immigrate here or are barely establishing. And so doing the switching over to those types of systems are not sometimes the most affordable for this region. So that's also another challenge that we do see here. And unfortunately, I would like to be grateful and say that we are lucky to always have the water on for some people, but that's not the case for everyone. Some people do face those challenges where water is being cut off or they don't have the water quality that they deserve. And I think that's just kind of part of the infrastructure not being the best and the cost that it costs to make the switches. And that's just what I wanted to elaborate on.
Excellent points. Absolutely. And I know that you're right. There are people that don't have as good of access. And you're right, it's usually the same populations, right? If somebody is without basic resources, whether it's water or energy or anything, it's usually the same populations of marginalized people. And there has to be that concept in the approach, right? Because this can't all be about buying the most anything, because that can't always be the solution. There has to be part of those solutions that are very simple that anybody can do. And thank you for raising that. Others?
You don't be so shocking. We're a friendly group.
So one of the things I was thinking about that we're particularly challenged with here, of course, is the triple digit summers that are now becoming, you know, it's more of a challenge every summer. And so how do you cool your space? A place like UTEP, you can't even shake a stick at the amount of energy that's used to keep these buildings freezing 24/7, 12 months out of the year. But in a home, you're either working with refrigerated air, which is a lot of energy use, or you're working with a swamp cooler, an evaporative cooler, which is energy use plus water. I'm not sure what the comparisons might be. And I feel like a lot of people here do use swamp coolers still. And I feel like there should be some innovative technology to run those, to design them so that they are more efficient and recycle the water that they're using. And I don't know, it's a difficult problem also because we have very, very mineral laden water here.
That's right.
There are things called fans.
Behind you, we have another comment?
Oh, Jerry?
Greg, 80% of the water here is used in agriculture. El Paso Water has done a great job over the last 30 years of reducing per household by encouraging xeriscaping, low flow appliances, and switching to refrigerated air from the evaporative coolers. We have the unique situation here where we grow export crops with desert water. We put 600 gallons of desert water to make a pound of pecans that we send to China. And they're expanding the groves even. So I'm not sure what the solution to that is. It's also true with cotton and forage crops that, again, are exported. So we're exporting water and we live in a desert. If you've got a solution to that, let me know.
Great point. There's a lot of great stuff here. So the heat, the desert heat, which is part of the reason why we have so much export crops in this region, great access to sunlight all year round. Good access to the Elephant Butte Reservoir, because you're right, 80% is agriculture and they get the water first. The water gets out of the reservoir and the surface water goes to the agriculture first. That's the economic engine. And you're right. I think I've read that something like 80% of either America's pecans or the world's pecans come from your area. And you're right. I love that expression, exporting water. And that's what it is, right? The water goes into the product here. That product holds water. It gets on a ship and it goes somewhere else. That's you guys in a desert exporting water. Solutions, that's going to have to be for somebody way smarter than me. Talking about the heat, challenges of heat and how that plays a big role. That's one of the things that we looked at in our pilot in Los Angeles. One of the technologies that does a very good job of providing cooling with less energy is a heat pump. We're trying to see if that might be one of the options that we can look at for this next phase that we're working on. I'm aware that El Paso Water does do an excellent job on a lot of things, and they have very successfully brought in a lot of government money to help support things like the desalination plant, the largest inland plant in the world. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Because you have groundwater here, but it's very salty. Now, even though local water is all the same water, there's various situations that are different in El Paso and in Juarez. Because, well, there's so many different reasons, but usually it has to do with the policies and the politics about who gets access to water. Now, we all know water in the West in the United States is a bizarre tangle of historical agreements about who gets access to the water. But it's also very different, right? In Texas, there's one set of laws about who gets access to the water. It's basically if you own the land, you get the water that's underneath it. In New Mexico, it's very different. And in Mexico, also different again. So you run up into challenges because it's all the same water, but there are very different rules about how you get to access it. Now, does anybody know about how we go about agreeing on who gets water that's shared between the United States and Mexico? It's by treaty, right? And it's a very long-standing treaty and it's very active. And the International Boundary Water Commission gets together with their Mexican counterparts and they talk about every drop of water all along the way and who gets it. Very well managed. What's very interesting is that's about surface water. All water is the same water, but they vary only in 3 instances in the past, since their entire existence, have they talked about anything related to groundwater. Surface water is very significant for El Paso, like we talked about. That's where the agriculture comes from. But in Juarez, they don't get access to any of the surface water that El Paso does. Juarez deals only with groundwater. Now, groundwater, there's a big reserve there, but very salty, and it's getting depleted more quickly than it is being brought up. So these are some of the challenges. And this is something that we're doing here in El Paso and Juarez, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development with a grant from Cummins, which has a very large production plant in Juarez, is coming up with the idea to build a water observatory. Just try to bring in to look at some of these issues. What does smart water management mean? How is it coordinated across the border, across jurisdictions? Who gets access? What are the smartest ways to manage it? Sure, there's water, but the further down you have to go to get it, and the more you have to clean it, that cost goes up and up and up and up and up. And who's going to pay for that? As we heard in the back, some people are already having trouble getting access to good water today at the cost today. As that cost goes up, what happens to those people? What happens to those communities? So our vision with the Water Observatory is independent, collaborative, innovative, action-oriented civil organization. It works as like a think tank and an action tank. We are bringing together different institutions that have a very important piece of this puzzle, like El Paso Water, like UTEP is on the managing board. In Juarez, we got the UACJ, Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez, and the Municipal Water Authority, academics from COLEF, the North American Development Bank, and Cummins. And we're working to try to bring in more of the private sector, especially those maquilas along the border that are using massive amounts of water, that depend on that water to be able to create the products that are also exported out all over the world. It's another way of exporting water, isn't it? So this is sort of the region that we're focusing on. And you can see with those populations, this is one of, if not the largest urban area that straddles international border in the world. And that means that there's a lot of challenges. So one of the challenges, of course, we talked about the fragmentation. Every jurisdiction has different rules about how they use water. And also the communication and coordination, organization, right? What are the official mechanisms for all the entities that take groundwater out to coordinate and make sure that they're talking to each other and using fair practices and the best practices? Because the lake that sits beneath doesn't care about international borders. It's the exact same water on both sides. And of course, we know, as we heard, the stress, increase the hydraulic stress. You mentioned it's getting hotter. It is. The populations are rising. These are both stressful things, and that aquifer is getting depleted faster than it's getting replenished. These are the key objectives of the observatory. One, just make sure we all understand and have we're all singing from the same sheet of music. Have a repository where all the information about the local water situation can be brought together into one place and accessed by everybody. Academic stuff, policy stuff, everything that's relevant. Put those learnings in towards cooperation, right? And also I have a forum where some of those binational official conversations can happen, where these people can look at each other face to face and talk about what they're working on and what they care about. Identify any local actions that we think need to happen and advocate and propose. And then supporting actions for improvement. Working with some of these businesses and saying, what do you care about? What are your challenges with water? What are some ways that you think that you could improve? How can you learn about them? How can we help you find the right resources and bring together the right experts that can answer your questions and help you do a better job of implementing your own conservation policies? That kind of brings us towards the end of our time, I think, but I want to make sure to get your reactions and reflections as well. So again, anybody have anything that they want to add? Any comments, questions, disagreements?
There is an organization, the Permanent Forum on Binational Waters. Luis and I belong to it. Scholars on both sides of the scholars, academics, scientists, and policy people, and activists like myself, on both sides of the borders. We meet monthly online, though they are, I think they're expanding it as a think tank. Headquartered at Texas A&M, Rosario Sanchez runs it. They've done a good job of mapping these aquifers along the 2,200-mile U.S.-Mexico border, and are coordinating science and activism associated with that. You might want to check them out.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I have, and I see that they also have a very good a repository online with a lot of that data that you're talking about.
I apologize. I came in a little bit late, so I don't know if you may have answered this, but you did mention the gray water systems a little bit that you guys have kind of been starting to implement in some of the LA systems. LA region. What are some of the costs that you guys have been seeing, and what are some of the solutions that you guys have been trying to implement to make it more cost efficiently for the people in the LA that maybe we could go ahead and bring over here? Since a lot of the places that do offer that in this region are mainly privately owned, and it's mainly people who are on the upper scale that can go ahead and do those switches. So what have you seen that we can go ahead and implement over here for those types of switches?
That's a great question. So she's asking about gray water, and that's basically reusing the water in your home, right? The water that's dirty, but not super dirty, right? You washed your hands, the water that comes off. You've taken a shower, the water that comes off after that. So we're just about to start our first gray water project that's being installed as we speak, and that's a recirculating shower. And there are a huge number of challenges with it. Policy. California, has very really forward leaning when it comes to environmental policy stuff. There's not much on the books yet about reusing gray water in the home. And that comes down to health concerns, right? Are you able to do a good enough job of filtering and killing any bacteria that makes it possible to be codified into the system? So this is something that needs to be looked at and changed. We've got an exception to work because they want to study, the city wants to study what we're doing to try to understand a little bit more. There are other companies like Brainstick that aren't working with us, but that are doing some similar showers in California, and they're finding a lot of challenges. This is a very new technology. So there's the technology piece, and those are challenges for us as well. And when it comes to cost, sadly, all I can say right now is not yet because of all these challenges.
Can you redirect your washing machine water outflow to your yard legally in California? Because I know some people that do that. I don't know if it's legal or not, but I know that you can get your effluent from your washing machine piped over to your yard. And then if you do have plants, you can water them that, right?
So we haven't done that in our pilot in Los Angeles. And so I can't speak to whether it's legal in California, but I do know that El Paso Water has a program right now, Laundry to Lawn, that they're trying to get people to do. And so that's definitely an option. Yeah, I'd be happy to hear what she has to say on that.
I know a little bit about that. They say that you have to use specific shampoos and laundry detergent so that it's okay to use like when it's being transferred to the water, it's not damaging the plant.
So one of the reasons why we aren't looking at that so closely in our pilot is because we think we're going to be able to get the laundry machines down to such a low amount of water that it won't be that significant. Yes, come.
It's actually a follow-up to that because I just was interested in one of the things you said that there are some detergents that work better with cold water and some I think you said like Tide Pods that are more efficient in the laundry detergents.
Mhm.
So I think those already exist, right? I'm assuming that people use it.
Yeah.
But I don't think people like know, I suppose, like those are the ones that you should buy. I was wondering if you could mention some of them, so maybe we could disseminate the knowledge and maybe kind of get it around being like, hey, you should maybe use detergents, much good for colder water, these, so.
It's a great question. And at perfect timing because this morning we just updated our website with a list of all the appliances and products, consumables that we used in the LA pilot. So, oh, my website was up there, 50literhome.org. You can read more about it, read about the findings and find everything that's in the home. Yeah, and you'll find some very, very low cost ways. If all you can do is start using a dishwasher in your home more and see some Procter and Gamble products that you can purchase, you can maybe save some significant water for a very low amount of money.
There's probably other companies that make it too.
Yes, probably,
Yeah.
probably.
Just to be fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but Procter and Gamble is one of the founding members of the 50 Liter Home Coalition.
And then also, it's just interesting, I think people in this room should think about how much water we use in El Paso per person compared to how much people in Juarez use per person. It's almost, isn't it almost double? Really? The water use here in El Paso versus Juarez, I think per person.
Household.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so, and
Mainly for the landscape.
here in the US.
Yeah, that's what makes the difference. So mainly here in El Paso, the reason why we consume double the amount of water than Juarez, even though Juarez has double the population, is mainly the landscaping. So like you said, people like their yards and keeping it green as much as they can throughout the year.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. I'm aware that we're over time, so I don't want to keep abusing our hosts.
Yeah, thank you all for participating in World Water Week. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you've learned some things that can help you better use water and appreciate water. And also, Brian, look at the Rio Grande if you want to see a water problem in El Paso. It's dry right now. Okay, so I mean, we forget the disconnect between the environment and what we do in our household. It has a big impact on more than just us. So, yeah.